everybody. I'm really glad to start a new live conversation with the Future Food Institute and our fellows of the Digital Bootcamp together with you. So welcome with us. So today I'm really excited because we are gonna host for half an hour one of our greatest food heroes. And actually with Stephen, we started a journey together, and we really feel we are aligned with the mission that we're pursuing from Italy, Dubai, Asia, and US, all over the world. So I've been very inspired about what you have been doing during the pandemic. We were sharing many different moods and feelings really at the beginning of the pandemic. We were in Italy, I was stuck in Italy. And of course, we have been seeing all of this huge wave coming. And I think that this experience has been really kind of an ordeal that all together, all over the world, we have been experiencing, and has been highlighting all the worst, but also all the best of our society, because we have been seeing in the street the worst. But I think that people like you have shown to everyone how many good things a community can do working together. And so, Stephen, first of all, I would love you to introduce the Green Bronx Machine. And then we're going to jump into, say, learning some stories and some amazing practices out of your experience.
Great. So, buongiorno, everybody. Greetings from New York City. I am wearing the pandemic on my head, having just gotten a haircut yesterday after not having a haircut since February. So I'm excited. But I just want to let everybody know this is what Sara will be looking like for Boot Camp 2060, hopefully to be held on Mars. So this is future forward, but I'm happy to show my new haircut and get back to my cheese hat, and welcome to the Bronx. For those of you who, I thank you all for who are sending me these little notes. It's great, and it's so nice to see familiar faces. So as I was sharing with Sara, clearly the pandemic has really given us an X-ray into the world. It has given us an X-ray into how societies see food systems, how they see people of color, how they see workers, how they see food systems, how they see food structures, and what their priorities and priorities aren't. And shame on us for not seeing this pandemic coming, but it's symptomatic of obviously three larger illnesses that have transcended humanity since day one. Number one, racism. Number two, greed. And number three, corruption. And here we are. So here, much like you guys in Italy, where you were the epicenter of Europe, New York City was the epicenter for the United States. And it was just awful. In our immediate circle of friends, family, and colleagues, we had over 24 deaths, which in and of itself is mind-numbing. It seemed like every other day or every other week was a funeral. Parks were converted to morgues. The streets have been closed. And just all of those collateral problems, and realize I'm part of a school system with 1.2 million children. So we closed schools. And, everyone's talking about digital learning and distance learning. And I've got to tell you, I'm such a fan of Zoom. It's so wonderful to look at. I almost feel like I could rub Sara's cheeks and pinch her on the cheek, which makes me so happy. But for marginalized communities that don't have access to the internet and don't have access to devices, it's really important to not let us confuse the new Green Deal with the new Screen Deal, because all the Screen Deal is really doing is putting a lot of money into other people's pockets and helping to exacerbate the divide that already exists in society. For children to voyeuristically look into what's going on elsewhere in the world and not have access to those tools, to me, is absolutely shameful. That said, this is an opportunity for us to become our own heroes, to really kind of grab destiny in this moment and say, how are we going to move forward? So I'm a big believer in leading by example. I have my farm in my living room, so I'm always growing food. You can see I have my classroom back here, so I'm constantly teaching from home. but we really had to look at some of the practices and procedures that we were doing to basically feed people. My students are responsible for feeding 26 cancer patients. We have now assumed that responsibility by launching a digital campaign called the Sustainable Gangster campaign, where we got t-shirts, and t-shirts resulted in the purchase of a bag of groceries for seniors. We started looking at food supply issues, and we're able to reclaim food that would have otherwise gone into the garbage from restaurants and industrial supply and actually delivered it door to door. We are looking at ways to claim food at the market that at its peak of freshness, which is absolutely wonderful because that's the best time to introduce fresh fruits and vegetables to children's diet. But at the market, fresh fruit has no value because it's non-saleable. So we're getting this food that would otherwise go into garbage, otherwise go into waste systems, and literally distributing it to those who need it most. While everyone is real proud of their distance learning, I'm really proud of the fact that Lizette, my wife, God bless her, made sure every child got a device. And then the day before we go live, we deliver food and supplies to the children. Because it's one thing to say you're doing Zoom cooking or Zoom teaching, and it's another thing to not have those ingredients or those materials in front of you. So we are making sure the children have those ingredients and materials in front of them. I'm on the internet almost every other day doing readings, doing professional development. I feel like from my living room, I've never met more people than ever. And now that the winter is over, I was sharing with Sara, we have built one of the most robust community gardens and are literally delivering seedlings around New York City to encourage people to do something great. Get out there, put their mask on, their gloves on, and grow something greater. And we're building community gardens across the city. We've distributed over 100,000 seedlings. We are going to convert our summer camp into farm camp and mobilize masses of children and masses of adults to come together and build farms right where they need it most, in public housing, on public land, in public communities. Certainly the crisis and the tragedy of George Floyd and so many around and so many before, and hopefully no one thereafter, has really taken the notion of community building and community policing to a whole nother level. And there's no better place to do that than around the language, lexicon, and distribution and growing of food, because food brings seniors and little guys together in ways that you can't begin to imagine. So I couldn't be prouder of the food heroes that I meet each and every day. And in this time of incredible desperation, perspiration, and aggravation, I'm really meeting people who inspire me so much daily, who are really taking the lead to do things that, are important and really changing the way communities come together. In our community,
that's pretty amazing.
No food. Yeah, it's mind-numbing, but it's sad that what it has taken has gotten us to this point, but this moment will and shall give birth to a movement that we will never forget. And, it's also making me redefine my work in the nonprofit sector, because I really, as someone who's always championed nonprofit work, I will always champion nonprofit work. But for me, philanthropy is not the answer. We can't nonprofit ourselves to a better future. It really is about policy and change. And to me, that's what it's about. Philanthropy will encourage Americans to donate bottles of water to Flint, Michigan. And that's nice and that's admirable. But policy and change will make sure that we build pipes, and anyone who pollutes that water system will go to jail. And that is the answer. So that's why I'm really excited about some of the work that I'm doing. And that's why I'm really excited to be shifting towards policy and really going from emergency measures to how do we create systemic change.
That's pretty cool. So actually, here in the call together with me, we have some of our fellows, colleagues, and hosts of our digital bootcamp, representing actually communities from really around the world. We have Anusha that is based in India. It's pretty late at night for her. We have Evie from Brazil. We have
I remember you. Hi, Anusha. I think I met you.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
When people turn the cameras on, I love.
Yeah. Now they're gonna turn their camera on.
Okay.
Then we have Julia, who's leading the entire process of our bootcamps, the digital one and not. Last summer, we were together with you during our Climate Smart Cities Bootcamp in New York. We went at the UN, and also we came with all our fellows to visit the school, your schools, both schools. So I think has been pretty impressive what you're doing. And I would love, now we have also many educators following us now today. I would love you to share what have been the starting point and what have been your magic recipe, because I think it's pretty impressive to see how have been impactful the process. You have been tracking with numbers the effects of our action. And I think it's pretty interesting to share the process from day one, because actually you have been able to change and shape your society. And the goal of our experience is to train climate shapers, food shapers, shapers of the community. And you have been doing that. So can you share it like an appeal, the process and your ingredients?
So my ingredients are really, well, first of all, I've got to shout out my wife, Lizette, because that's the magic pill. If it wasn't for Lizette, I wouldn't be here. So I've got to give her credit and make sure that everybody knows behind every, I may be the face and sometimes the behind of the organization, but Lizette is the heart, the arms, and the brain. And I want to make sure people know that it is not about me. It is always about we. It's always about looking at what is simple, what is scalable, and what is replicable. Sara, I'm going to divert for a minute. You know, all those students at the special needs schools, they all now have their food handling certification. So they've actually passed their licensing exam. Jesse, I don't know if you know that. The 721 kids got their food hand. So they are actually now eligible for living wage employment. And it goes to show you that in this day and age, you know, good food, healthy food is really, we no longer have to look to see children as epicenters of profit. That there is the possibility of creating smart, resilient, conscientious consumers that understand they vote with their mouth, their fork, and their wallet daily, and ideally at the ballot. You know, yesterday I was on the phone with a woman in rural Montana who is experiencing with her students a huge interest in her grass-fed beef, because there is such resistance and awareness now around factory farmed animals and how that is so unethical, both for the staff, the animals, the planet, and everybody. So this new awareness of what resilient and inclusive, equitable food systems can bring to us is really creating a landscape that will hopefully have a healthier planet and a healthier diet for everyone. That's what gets me excited. In terms of the work that I'm doing, it's really rooted in one simple precept. No one can do everything, but everyone can do something. And you have to find that one thing that you can do that's going to make a difference and pay it forward. You know, the other thing is that we need to look at ourselves as for we are the ones that we're waiting for, not looking for outside intervention, but what are steps? It's very easy to point your fingers at people. Listen, I could blame a whole lot of people for the problems of the world, but I choose not to do that and simply spend my time actuating and effectuating change and a movement and people to be engaged in something that is positive. So, you know, we can wait for the light at the end of the tunnel. We can pray for the light at the end of the tunnel, or we can choose to be the light that shines within the tunnel. And that's what I choose to do, is be the light within the tunnel as well as the light we seek at the end collectively. For me, the biggest lever, of course, is public school and public education, because that is the greatest equalizer. But it's also very important, I think, to understand the difference between equality and equity. It's not enough to say, I am not a racist. And I really feel strongly about that. It's my question is, how are you engaged in actively anti-racist policies, protocols, and behaviors on a daily basis? How does your shopping, how does your purchasing habits inform the way people are employed and treated? Those are the things that I really like to focus on. So equality means I go with Sara, and I'm a foot taller than her. Sarah's down here, and I'm a foot taller, and I take her to the park, and there's a fence. And I can see over the fence, and Sara can see the fence. Well, we are equal. We're both at the fence. But equity means that I put Sara on a box, and she is looking over the fence at the same eye level that I do. And that's the kind of mindset we need if we're going to bring people, stakeholders, and the world to the table in an equitable and inclusive manner. So I tend to make sure my work is not focused on being equal, but being focused on equity and access to all. And that's kind of how I do what I do. And I just get up early and stay up late and do a lot of dreaming in between, but take small steps towards bigger goals each and every day.
Yeah, actually, as you know, I've been writing and thinking through this connection also between racism and say awareness about sustainability and our attitude on extracting from the planet and killing the planet. And I see that those two kind of violence are just the expression of the same non-care about the society. And everything goes back to education. So really, we see that there is a huge lack of good leadership around the world. But
sure,
this lack of good leadership, of course, is connected also to education, the educational system. We have not been trained enough to collaborate and to work together and to see diversity as a value, something that makes us richer and so on. So I think that this is pretty connected.
Well, for me, the new curriculum, I have a new tagline. And for me, compassion is the new curriculum. That's really my big tagline. If you're not teaching compassion, if you're not teaching empathy, you're not teaching. Content is content.
Absolutely.
Compassion is the new curriculum. And, for me, it's about education, not asphyxiation. And I say that not only in light of the very tragic incidences of George Floyd and so many others, but when you think about how marginalized communities are being choked, they're being choked and asphyxiated by lack of access to clean air, clean water, healthy schools, healthy environment, healthy foods, all of that is a form of asphyxiation. So education around that is really my mandate. And it is education, not asphyxiation. It is about empowerment. It is about opportunity. And that's really what we're trying to bring to the table.
Yeah.
And holding other people accountable. And holding other people accountable. Because, if you are not at this point in time, if you're not standing with the oppressed, you are sitting with the oppressor. So it's very important to make sure that your actions are intentional and known and understood, and that people know where you stand. That, to me, is the most important thing. The degree to which we resist injustice is the degree to which we as individuals are free.
Yeah, what you say
Sara, I think we have some connectivity.
Also with the outcome of our group. You can go during the conversation.
Sorry, we just couldn't hear you. The connection was not so good, so I thought I will just jump in.
Yeah.
I have one thing actually, what I would like to jump on that analogy with the fence and Sara being a bit shorter than you, Stephen. I recently saw, it was like a drawing series. And I would like to go one step further when you don't need to give a box to Sara to be able to look through that fence, but the fence would be built a bit lower. So she doesn't need any aid to actually have the same view as you do. And that's kind of going along with the systemic change, what you also mentioned. And I would like to know your take on one thing. I am originally coming from Hungary. But our system is, let's say, questionable at this moment. And when I was thinking about helping to bring agriculture in the education, maybe build food forests to feed the canteens of surrounding schools, the barrier, what I found, that everything is centrally organized. So in order to get into those canteens or be the supplier of the canteens, I will need to win a tender on a national level. So how do I take this approach? How do I tackle these barriers when I face them?
So, there's a lot of rumor. It's funny because politics and government are a whole different grasp. It's on a whole different thing. It's really interesting to see some of the elections that happened. Yesterday was primary. Actually, Tuesday was primary day here in the States. And there were a lot of, that is a great question. And thank you. You are correct there, Sarah, for that. But there has been a lot of political upheaval. So the most important thing you can do is really be the voice for change and really be the catalyst. It amazes me how much people don't know. And then once they do know, how angry they become. The ability to transform and connect with people like through these things is remarkable. And I say this only because, the last phone call I had with Sara, which was wonderful, we got online. Other people were listening and a lot of people reached out to me and we were able to make some huge connections. So I always say the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So you have to continue to squeak. And then when you can't squeak, scream. And if you can't scream, cry, roll, shriek, make noise, wave your hand. Because it's amazing that people basically turn around and say, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that. And then the other thing that I always like to say is asking for permission is begging for denial. So sometimes, half the battle in life is just showing up. If you keep showing up and you keep putting your hand up, then you keep speaking up. These are things that make you a force to be reckoned with, whether people like it or not. And, a lot of people say, what are some of the secrets to my success? The secrets to my success are really things that don't require a lot of talent. I come early, I stay late, I say please, I say thank you, I ask permission, sometimes I don't, but I come prepared, I come willing, I do a lot of preparation, I kind of begin with the end in mind, and I lead by the power of example. And I think when you do that, now more than ever, you have the ability to go from a moment to a movement. And that's, we're seeing that everywhere around the world. And that to me is really, really exciting.
Thank you. I think Ivani had a question. Yes.
I was going to ask you something about on those lines, how you can involve also adults. How do you involve the kids' families from the school in this education process? Because I really agree with you, because most of the people don't know how intricate this problem of food is, and everything that is involved on it. So I just wanted to know how you involve the families and the adults, and how you build, sensibilize the entire community. If you have
the same way McDonald's did with Happy Meals. How do you think McDonald's gets adults through the door? By going after children. And I don't know if you are a parent or an auntie or you have siblings, but think about the power of mommy, I want this, mommy, I want that. The power when you teach children to ask for things that are healthy for them, that are fair for them, it changes everything. It really does. And if you give children access at a young age to what is good for them, that's all they know. That's all they know. Now, it's really important to understand. I do a lot of social advocacy work, and I want to be involved in politics. And, I jokingly say I'm going to run for elected office. But one of the most important things that I ever did with children is you guys may know the fast food restaurant Wendy's. And Wendy's refused to pay 1 penny a pound more for the tomatoes for their workers in Florida. Imagine refusing to pay 1 more penny a pound. Now, my children, my young kids who love Wendy's, it's a beautiful logo, it's a 99-cent meal. They were very upset to learn that Wendy's would not pay the farmers, who basically looked like their aunts, uncles, and grandparents, 1 penny a pound more. And guess what we did? Not one of my students goes to Wendy's anymore. And instead of going to Wendy's, what are we doing? We have fresh fruit in school. We have fresh vegetables in school. So teaching children the power, as a parent, you tell your children to do this, do that, and they say, oh, it's not fair. But as an educator, when I hear it's not fair, that's my lens to say, well, what are you going to do to change that? And, children at a young age want to be involved. They want to be engaged. They want to understand how they can make a big impact. As much as you think children want cell phones and sneakers and all these incredible materialistic things, when they learn that children in India or Pakistan or Vietnam are making these things and not going to school, they say, wow, maybe I don't need these things so much. And, we start looking at things that really affect us. You'd be amazed how many children don't know that the water in their toilet bowl is the same water that comes out of their faucet. And when they start understanding these things, they start realizing how valuable water is and start thinking about things. And it tends to happen in the communities where the potential for impact is the biggest, which are the marginalized communities. So, yeah, I'm very happy that I have some vegans. I'm very happy that I have kids who are eating better. But what I'm really happy about is the children who are making decisions and understanding that they are part of a larger system. And that's the most important thing. So activating children is great. The other thing, in terms of growing food with children, here's the deal. When little Johnny, a first grader, a second grader, cute little kid comes home with vegetables that he grew in school and shows them to his parents, the parents tend to eat them. They tend to celebrate that. And that's a great thing to do. When they do it in high school, the parents say, that's great, go get a job, go get a job. Don't, go get a job, do your homework. But starting at a young age enables children and parents to come together around some of the most critical things in the world, what we're putting in our body, where that food is coming from, and understanding all that is involved with that. So again, it comes back to education. I've never met a parent who says, or very rarely, who says, I don't care about my children. I don't want the best for my children. Whether they're rich or they're poor, whether they are, no matter what, people want the best for their children. So as long as you give them a clear voice and of abundance of choice as to how to get there, I think they opt in. It's up to us to be smarter than the media and the marketing that comes at these children. And as adults, it's up to us to create better policy that ensures it. Some of the things that we're doing in our community is I'm asking for bodegas not to sell beer during school hours. If you have alcohol and tobacco products, that you can't take food stamps. And I'm not saying I don't want you to sell those things, but I'm saying we need to keep children as far removed from that as possible. And you can't have the best of both worlds. And there's getting a lot of support for it. So it's really about just common sense and not being afraid to speak the truth. And children like the truth. You'd be amazed. They really know that what they really like the truth. They're fascinated to learn about the truth.
I have been always pretty fascinated about the curriculum that you have been developing, because actually starting from food and starting from growing plants, you can actually touch the entire world. You can learn about history, geography, science, physics, everything. So can you tell us a little bit how you designed this curriculum? Because actually you started from a very practical curriculum, but I think with the mindset that is, let's say, looking for the long-term effect. And you are not a short-termist, you are a long-termist. So you do things to see the outputs in 10 years, in 20 years, because you're growing better humans, not just growing a tomato or
right. No, I'm growing high-performing schools. So thank you for that. That's a great thing to talk about. I could not be more proud of the Green Bronx Machine curriculum, soon to be translated in Italian by Sara herself and her team. So I'm very excited about that. But it began with the notion that it's, first of all, it's project-based learning, because what do we know about learning? We want it to be sticky. We want children to do things that stick to them, that teachers like to do. We also know that schools, honestly, are very dysfunctional places. They are charged with so much. Teachers have so much to worry about that they don't need another brick on the pile. So what I wanted to do with this curriculum is embed the art and science of growing vegetables indoors, because, seasonality is important, to the art and science of healthy, high-performing schools. So the children think their job is to grow vegetables, and that's great. but they're just growing vegetables while they're learning the reading, writing, advocacy processes around it, the math, the science, the history, the advocacy piece, the communications piece, by using, indoor technology that's not expensive, but also can be linked to high-scale commercial production. So that's really, the most amazing thing is I didn't write this curriculum for champion teachers, because all of us on this call are a champion teacher. I wrote it for struggling principals and struggling schools so that principals could give this to teachers and say, if you do this, your school and your class is going to perform better. And the data shows it. It's very data driven. And along the way, you also have healthier outcomes for children who enjoy eating vegetables and enjoy working together. So it was very, to Sarah's point, future forward. I knew, and make no doubt about it, I'm here in New York City. I could wipe out the coronavirus tonight. And people say, that's great, Stephen, good job. But what about those test scores? What about attendance in school? What about teacher satisfaction? So those were the things that I focused on, because those are the bigger problems. And how we get there is up to us. So my choice, and particularly in so many schools and so many communities are food challenged and have obesity and so many other issues, my choice to engage schools was around food, because food is a non-negotiable. But whether it's technology, whether it's coding, whether it's knitting or making buttons or whatever it is, that's great as long as there is authenticity in it and transfer from each and every academic area. So the fact that the whole school is looking the same way, some are looking at the ceiling, some are looking at the floor, some are looking at the walls, that's great. At least we share the same vision and contribute to the larger photograph. So it has been transformational in public schools. I'm going to tell you something, Sarah, that I haven't even shared with you, and this is fascinating. I got a call, believe it or not, I'm going to be traveling to Lebanon. And you may have heard about all the social unrest in Lebanon. It's horrible. And not only the social unrest, the food shortage. So right now in Lebanon, you need a suitcase full of money to buy a shopping bag full of groceries. And the Lebanese government and the Lebanese school system is having me come out to make a TV show about teaching people how to grow food in their homes, and whether it's using technology or DIY or hacking or making space food. So I got to call Sherry and get her involved. But I'm literally going to be making a national TV program in Lebanon, because it's very easy to grow lettuce, radishes, carrots, all of these essential things right in windowsills, right in your home, using yogurt containers, coffee containers, taking all of this organic waste that is piling up in the street and using it to create compost and literally heal ourselves. So it's kind of fascinating. I've been overwhelmed with just, and here, even in the United States, when you think about this whole movement now to defund the police, the most important thing you can do in a community is to put in systems, protocols, and safe places for people to congregate that reduce crime and create property value and create relationships where one person is talking to the other person, where one person is working alongside of the other person. And nothing does that better than the art and science of growing food and sharing it with your communities. So I think at this very important moment in time, we are again seeding a movement that is going to allow us to grow something so much greater.
Yeah, and actually, when you talk about a movement, this is really a huge movement. I have been with you at your school in Dubai. I've been with you at your school in the Bronx. We were together in LA. There are now thousands of schools adopting your curriculum. So I'm wondering how you can empower the teachers, because of course we talk about the kids, and the kids, I always have been seeing with you kids with a lot of passion, they were happy, they were healthy, they were
I found our pictures from when I was with you in Italy. Oh my God.
Oh my goodness, in Italy as well.
Right.
Yeah. But then I think that a crucial point is the empowerment of the teachers, because the teachers are the key connection with the kids. And I think that they are really the crucial point, because to scale up the model, you need also amazing teachers that can actually engage the community like you are doing.
So that was the plan. So number one, teachers sadly, and sometimes sadly, sometimes not, they're responsible to their principals and their supervisors. So when I designed this curriculum, I wanted supervisors to be very comfortable giving it to teachers. Because if the supervisor is giving it to the teacher and says, do this, the teachers want to do it. So there's compliance. But I also wanted to make it very teacher friendly, because at the end of the day, that's what I am. I'm teacher centric. My goal is, I always talk about quality of teaching and quality of learning. Is it fun? Is it applicable? Is it sticky? Can we enjoy it? Is there ways for differentiation, inclusivity? And the most important thing is that teachers really love doing this. When you give teachers a tool that they can use, that the supervisor likes, that's win-win-win. When you give teachers a tool that they can use, that they enjoy, that the children like, even better. So it was very research-based. The work that I did was very research-based. I pulled myself out, and it wasn't about me, it was about we, the profession overall. And that's how we were able to grow this. And that's the most important thing. You never want to give a teacher or anyone another brick on the pile. But if someone can't see, you want to give them a pair of glasses. If someone is tired of walking, you want to give them a bicycle, and that's what this is. If someone is in the heat, you want to give them air conditioning. And that's exactly what this curriculum is. It is a tool to transform teaching and schools, along with children. And I think everyone can get behind that. And remarkably, we did a lot of beta research. We did a lot of testing. And we've come up with something that is literally amazing. 2 weeks ago, I was able to do a United Nations conference with schools from 40 countries around the world. And the children were so well prepared. It was amazing. And the one thing they all want to talk about is growing food. How they can be better environmental citizens. They really understand the sense of desperation and frustration, often within their home countries, around the refugee crisis, the climate crisis, the food crisis, the obesity issues, the diabetes issues. When you really give children the opportunity to talk about these things, they want to talk about these things, in addition to video games and everything else. But when you have a curriculum that gamifies learning, that gamifies food productivity, and also looks at inputs and outputs, it really becomes something that children can wrap themselves around. And the reality is, nowadays with the internet, there's so much information out there. What we really need teachers to do is teach children how to cooperate, how to collaborate, how to be kind, how to be empathetic, to work together, to share ideas. And at the end of the day, the data still says one thing: children who have access to one kind, caring adult will succeed in life. And I think everybody wants to be a kind, caring adult. And if not, I'm delighted to talk to you about that in private.
Definitely. Stephen, one question is how about measuring the children's performance at school and health of them and the family? How do you measure that? If you see the impact, of course, the answer is yes, but you measure this
So
somehow?
a great question. What we did with our curriculum is we looked at academic outcomes related to Common Core and next generation science standards and IB. We said, what do tests test for? What is school designed for? And we really stranded it out. So we do pre-test and post-test observations, also around behavioral aspects of what the children know about food, what they eat, what their eating habits are. But in the curriculum, what we did is we designed inflection points every 3 weeks that are very easy for teachers to do a 30-second test with the children and give us the data. And then we look at the data and we teach the teachers what they need to know to correctively instruct. And it's been game-changing. Listen, I always say that when teachers go and see test scores, it should not be a surprise. Like, oh, I can't believe they did so bad, or oh, I can't believe they did so good. The testing, we should not be teaching to the test. What we should be, the test should just be a confirmation of that we've done a good job and done a good job. So understanding that path and giving children, when I look at test scores, I don't want to see the right answer. I want to look at patterns of the wrong answers and see why children are getting them wrong. How come consistently they're picking this wrong answer instead of that right answer? that really allows us to learn. And when we understand that behavior in real time, we can correct it. And that really has been game changing. So our curriculum is very data driven. And we also devise systems and methodologies to make it easy for teachers to report it, because everybody knows teachers are very stressed for time. The other thing that we did, and I know, Sara, I can't wait to see who's going to be the voice of me on the translation, is we came up with short instructional videos, literally 2-minute, 3-minute, and 4-minute videos that people could watch on a phone, in between classes, in the bathroom, you know, online in the supermarket, to help them become better professionals. No one wants to sit through a big, long, you know, I know we've all sat through our fair share of horrible webinars. So, you know, something that is small, bite-sized, and actionable really is helpful. And that we focus on. I like to, you know, keep it tweetable.
Stephen, I have a question for you. I was one of the few lucky ones who got to wear your cheese hat 2 years ago on the global mission. I am from India, and I run this newsletter / online community called Edible Issues, where we bring together people from across the system, across the food system, in trying to create more awareness about the Indian food system. And in often these meetups, one of the questions that people ask us that I would like to ask you today is how, or what is the smallest thing that somebody can do today to take an action towards ensuring a more equitable and a resilient food system? So yeah, I'd like to ask you that.
Great question. So number one, thank you for wearing the cheese hat. I want to show, I'm looking as we speak to find a picture of someone to show you, because it is listen, if I ever knew this cheese hat would be so powerful, you would have no idea. But I'm trying to find a picture of a young man, a special needs young man that I met years ago, and his dream was to wear my cheese hat and to come meet me. So I invited him to come to an event where he came and meet me, and he's now the special Olympian champion. And we get online and we Skype, and it goes on around the world. Lizette, can you dig up the picture of Ian on your phone from my Facebook page? I'm going to have Lizette dig up this picture, and you'll see that's the power of just something that makes it, you know, attractable to people and attainable for people. But to your point, and you know, I'd like to chat with you, and Sara, please put this in your notes, because I get more inquiries from India than you could ever imagine. The interest in equitable food, in fair food, in growing healthy food in India, I'm overwhelmed. I don't even know how to answer all the inquiries I get. So that's something that if we had a handle on someone who could communicate that way, that would be great. But the easiest answer to how do you create a better food, eat less animal protein. Simply put, you know, if you eat less factory farmed food, you are eating something else. And if you are eating something else, odds are it is a locally grown piece of fresh fruit or vegetable. You know, taking a stand against factory farming is important. It is so important on so many levels. But I challenge my students, and this is how I started. And it kind of gets back to Ivani's question. Can you eat one less hamburger a week? That's not a huge change. You know, one less 99-cent meal a day. Instead of a hamburger, would you have a banana? Instead of a hamburger, would you have an orange or a banana or an apple or a piece of seasonal fresh fruit? And the answer is always yes. And while that child or while that person is eating a banana or eating an apple or eating a slice of watermelon or a piece of citrus, you know what I tell them? You have saved 400 gallons of water. And the children, they look at you and they think I'm crazy until you teach them that one hamburger requires 400 gallons of water. And then, you know, we'll go out and we'll look at things like chicken nuggets, and we'll say, I'll bring in a chicken and say, how many nuggets do you think I can get from this chicken? And a lot of times the children don't even know that the nuggets, the things that they eat, come from living things. So I have a plant-forward diet. I am not 100% animal protein free, but I certainly want to be as ethical and fair to the planet as possible in that which I eat. And when you just make a simple decision to eat one less animal protein a week, you're great. It was that easy? Great. Can you do it once a day? You know, can you do it once a meal? and you add frequency, duration, and and cadence to all of your behaviors, it's amazing. For those of you who know, I was 300 something pounds. How did I lose it? 1 pound at a time. I made one change, then I made another change, then I made another change, and I'm going to continue to make changes. And that's what it's about. But one less animal protein a week. Could you eat one less piece of chicken, one less piece of beef, one less piece of pork, one less shrimp, one less fish? Let that fish swim, and have babies. It all adds up, and it really does.
I have another question for you, because you mentioned how hungry kids are for truth. And they are the generation who literally get so much information through so many different channels. It's compared to my childhood, it's insane change. And I had a chance to see a one-man show of Josh Fox, which was called The Truth Has Changed. And he started with an example of a little girl standing up and asking him, but how do I know what is the truth? So how do you teach your kids to be able to filter and know what are the information, what they can rely on?
That's a great, I always say it's kind of like dating on the internet. No one puts up their worst picture, they put up their best. And that's how you have to start. I am constantly struggling with this whole notion of digital competency, of digital citizenship. What is real information? What is fake information? Just bear with me 1 second. Lizette found the picture. Okay.
That's what you want?
Yeah. So I just that's my friend. Let me see. I got to go this way. Can you guys see? That's Ian. I met him 2 years ago, and he was over 200 pounds, and I gave him the cheese hat. He's now the national champion. He was huge. It was his dream to meet me and wear a cheese hat. And now we speak once a week. So that's a screenshot of him calling me to tell me he just broke the 6-minute mile. And he broke the 6-minute mile because he broke the 10-minute mile. And then he broke the 9-minute mile and the 8-minute mile and the 7-minute mile. So he does it. And he's so happy. He's running a whole program in California. He's become a champion. So it's just one of the things I wanted to share with you about the hat, because it's very funny. But asking children to question the truth. When I was a little boy, it was always whatever your parents said was the truth. But now we know better. And it's okay to foster a culture in a classroom as a parent to ask questions. I really believe in asking questions and getting to a place of better truth, and then asking for data. It's one thing for someone to give you a check. It's a whole nother thing to cash it. So I always say, you never know the check is good until you cash it. Encourage children to take those risks. Obviously I feel very strongly about the political situation here in the United States. And I think, if you go on a bad date, you may want to give someone a second chance. But if you have the second bad date, maybe they are not getting what you need, and maybe the truth was not being represented properly. I think the most important thing that we can do is teach children to be empathetic and kind and compassionate, because when they put themselves in someone else's shoes, the truth tends to weigh out. The big equalizer is truth when children have empathy and compassion and think about beyond their immediate self. And children are really willing to do that. And it's a great opportunity. So, I don't know what is the truth. I know I always jokingly say the only thing I'm married to is my wife and innovation. The only thing that's really truth is time, and time is a thing I must earn. You can't make it go faster. You can't make it get slower. And when you die, you don't get any more. And I think when that is your mindset and you teach those things to children, that those are the most precious things you can have, you really reaffirm their ability to discern what is right and what is wrong. And that's the most important thing, letting children be able to decide what is right and what is wrong. I'm going to see what's in the chat room. It seems like there's a lot of stuff in there. So Ivani wanted to know, did I answer? I've just opened up. Ivani, yes, we measure children's health and performance at school as a result of food. We do it in a couple of ways. We do it in terms of analyzing their eating habits. We actually do surveys. We see what they're bringing home. We call their parents. We actually do surveys. We see what they can identify. So we do a whole lot of measurement around that. And here's an amazing statistic. And this is something that makes the greatest argument of all. According to the USDA, students who grow schools where there is some form of a gardening program consume 44% more fresh fruit and vegetables than their age equivalent peers where there is not access to healthy fresh food. That's game changing. Here's another interesting thing for all of you young folks to know. If you have 1 can of soda per day as a child, you will not, statistically, you do not have, those 220 calories will not influence your possibility of diabetes. However, if you have 1 can of soda per day in your childhood, your likelihood to develop onset diabetes is 750 times greater. So think about what that means. You know, understanding numbers, understanding data is critical. And kids like numbers because they add up. So I always believe you come from a place of truth. Education,
that's amazing, Stephen.
Association. Go ahead, Sarah.
No. It's always super inspiring, and it's always a great opportunity of learning whenever we hear you talking and sharing your experience. So I think that it's been a very juicy hour together with you, and
wow,
I really would love
already?
to. Yeah, more than an hour was flying away. But actually, I would love you to spend the last minutes really sharing with all the audience where they can reach out to you, where they can find your curriculum, when you are telling stories, because once a week I know you are sharing stories and fairy tales with kids. Oh. There are so many resources within your website, your books, and so on. And I think it's
the farm is here. So I have all kinds of things in the house. So thank you for that, Sarah. So you can learn about my work at Stephen Ritz, the website, and the work that we do at Green Bronx Machine on the Green Bronx Machine website. We are getting very robust on social media. I still don't know how to use it all, but we're learning. And there's Green Bronx Machine, and that's we're on all platforms. And then there's Stephen Ritz. But you know, most importantly, I don't want to talk about me. I would far more want to close by thanking all of you. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your belief in Sarah. And thank you for committing to a better, brighter world. That is what this work is really all about. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The degree to which we resist injustice is the degree to which we are free. And, you know, when I look at this beautiful cacophony of faces of people, I'm just going to make sure I go up and down the room. Each and every one.
Let's all come up with all our faces for the last picture,
right.
let's say.
It is a beautiful kaleidoscope of people, of cultures, of opportunity. And know that we are the ones we're waiting for. You know, I'm not waiting for anybody. I'm not waiting for just us. I'm waiting for just us. And, you know, justice denied is justice delayed, but we have the ability with the things that we do daily to really send very strong messages to people. You know, you vote with your mouth, you vote with your fork, you vote with your wallet, you vote with your actions, you vote with your intention. And, you know, the opposite of courage is not cowardice. The opposite of courage is conformity, because even a dead fish can go with the flow. And I know none of you are dead fish. So get out there and keep swimming, keep swimming, keep swimming, and make epic happen. That's what this work is all about. So God bless you and make it happen.
Thank you so much, Stephen. We hope to see you during our digital bootcamp.
No,
we're going to start on Monday the 6th, July the 6th. We're going to start our digital bootcamp. And every Friday, we're going to host the digital supper, sharing meals together, sharing stories around the table. So for sure, you're going to get special invitation from us. And we want you, Lisette, Michaela, all your team joining our supper, connecting people from all around the world.
You know what
Thank you
I
so
need?
much.
Recipes. If anybody wants to send me recipes, that would be great. We love doing recipes that don't
We will.
require cooking. Great. We love recipes.
Be ready, because you're going to get recipes from Finland, India, Brazil, all over the world.
Well, we like that, and that's how we teach. We're actually teaching with recipes from around the world. We have the children research the country, research the culture, research where the food came from. Then we get to eat it online and share it together.
That's great. Thank you so much, and I really look forward to hug you again and
Grazie
to
mille,
keep
mille,
going,
grazie,
doing things
grazie
together.
mille, grazie.
And thank you, Julia, Evie, Alessandro, Anusha, and all the people that was with us during this journey. Ciao.